Hello, everybody. I want to begin this episode by letting you know one thing, that we are all experts on censorship and political totalitarianism, because we are living through it. We are all victims of the system run by swamp monsters, especially those in the FBI, CIA, and Department of Justice.
These agencies are supposed to be apolitical and they're supposed to just serve justice, but they aren't.
The FBI investigated Trump as a private citizen to try and find dirt on him to get him out of the 2016 race. It was incorporated under the Obama administration, and the FBI has been they've been kind of corrupt since the Bushes, especially when they faked 9/11. I mean, what? Well, I didn't say that. And they started to get really like even worse during Obama's Fast and Furious scandal. So there's a bit of a track record of this. This isn't something new, and it's not going to go away for a while unless we start contacting these neocons in government to listen to us. We need to make them know who we are. Okay, so what really started this want to talk about the FBI, DOJ, CIA this week was the fact that they put Nick Fuentes on a no-fly list. Now, the no-fly list is a system where they can put people that they deem to be terrorists to not be allowed to fly. However, there is no process to actually doing so. You don't have to commit a crime. You don't have to have done something. They can just put people they don't like politically on there. And what they're trying to do is strengthen association between terrorism and conservatism so they can eventually just prosecute us all. This is an urgent issue. And every single neocon you see that refuses to say the words Nick Fuentes, refuses to say that name, refuses to speak out against this, they need to be called. We need to call them. We need to let them know that what they're doing is wrong and they need to listen up. And if they don't listen to us, we need to vote them out. We need to be done with the obsession with the elephant of the GOP and start embracing the social conservatism and America First conservatism. We do not need to be pledging allegiance to the Republican Party when they have been so infiltrated by corrupt figures, especially when the fact that the FBI has gone so bad under the Bushes, which were Republicans, and stuff like the Patriot Act just really signifies that. So as of different things FBI has done, the FBI had a honeypotter and the Proud Boys. If we look at, this comes from the New York Times. Proud Boys leaders secretly cooperated with FBI and police. Enrique Tarrio, the chairman of the far-right nationalist group, which is under scrutiny for its role in the Capitol riot, Proud Boys was an FBI informant, according to his lawyer. So it turns out that he's turned over a lot of people. He's turned over a lot of us, and
He isn't the only one. Joseph Biggs was also an FBI informant. Turns out, which is what he claimed, it's really telling how many people there were working with the FBI and the Proud Boys. Of course, his working was much earlier than Enrique Tarrios, which was actually just days before the riots, so I'm sure they talked about that, as well as two others which were FBI informants.
The FBI also had instructed the police to let in the honeypotters and lead people into the Capitol. The FBI orchestrated with people in these groups. They infiltrated it to create a riot, and then instructed the police to stand down so they can then create a message of conservatism being a terrorist movement. And now we're feeling the repercussions of that, where we're all being jailed and put on no-fly lists, even the people that were not even in the Capitol that day. So the FBI then, after they had the honeypotter in, we got in the Capitol, they investigated people at the Capitol that were let in, even those that didn't go inside, and they had the DOJ to then prosecute us. The manufactured situation allows them to surveil us under the Patriot Act and allows the DOJ to prosecute us illegally. Funnily enough, The Incredibles, a Disney movie, Disney Pixar, in The Incredibles, Syndrome, the villain, his whole ploy is to create this little entity that's a threat to the town and to then defeat it, because he is the only one that knows how to defeat it, and then save the town. and become the hero. He's manufacturing the crisis so that he can save us from it and then look victorious. Now, under my interpretation, this seems to be a very good, very, very good analogy for the media and the FBI and the CIA and the Department of Justice, which have been manufacturing crisis so they can save us from it. Another report came in as of this week from Business Insider. The Department of Justice planned to prosecute Chauvin regardless of if he was acquitted or not. So the process of impartial jury and right to fair trial has been completely thrown out the window in this country, to where if you're proven innocent of a crime, as Derek Chauvin should have been, if the jurors weren't felt the pressure that they were, in which he would have been obviously brought as innocent, then the DOJ would have just ignored it and then tried to prosecute him. It's corrupt, it's evil, and it's not good. Okay. And then going back to the Capitol riot things, I forgot I had this source. This comes from CBS News article. More than 410 defendants have been arrested since January 6th. More than 410 conservatives, a lot of which were innocent, have been arrested. The government said that it issued a combined total of over 900 search warrants, and the investigation has included more than 15,000 hours of surveillance and body-worn camera footage from multiple law enforcement agencies. The government has also gathered approximately 1,600 electronic devices, the results of hundreds of searches of electronic communication providers, over 80,000 reports, and 93,000 attachments related to law enforcement interviews and other investigative steps, authorities said in a filing. So it turns out that, as I said earlier, they manufactured a crisis, they created an issue, so they can then just illegally investigate us all, and then eventually put us on no-fly lists and stuff. It's fucked up. We need these neocons to speak up. This cannot be allowed. It's either join the American First movement, or lose your seat. We need to express that. We need to be calling them, because this is horrible. We need to also be informing them of what's going on with the social media censoring people, which happens to be something that the FBI works with social media to do. This comes from stgeorgeutah.com. FBI working with social media companies to stop the spread of misinformation. So it turns out the FBI works with social media to censor people. What we always hear from liberals is that it's not censorship when the social medias do it, because it's not government. And while this isn't really a correct interpretation, given the fact that these companies are given government-specific provisions to specifically censor us, they're also being helped by the government directly to censor us. And that's horrible. That's censorship. It's evil. It's tyranny. It's an invasion on our liberties. It's an invasion on free speech. It's a threat to us all. And we cannot have neocons sitting by on this. Oh, here's another thing. Coming from Laconia Daily Sun, I believe is what that is. What the website is called. Mainstream media and FBI are in cahoots with Democrats. So it turns out that the FBI works with the media to lie to the public about this stuff. So they create the issues. They infiltrate us so they can create the riots. And then they also work with the police to make sure it happens. And then they investigate us all illegally. They arrest us. They then work with social media to censor us. They put us on no-fly list. And then they work with media to lie about the whole thing and cover up what they did. It's evil. It's evil. It is what they are doing to try and bring in their world order. They are Syndrome from The Incredibles. They make up accusations about people like Matt Gaetz, Michael Flynn, Donald Trump, Roger Stone, Rudy Giuliani. What they want is for you to be scared and intimidated. They control the banks, they control what you can buy, they control the stores, they control if you can enter, they control if you can fly, they, like on a plane, they control your employment, they control your, basically if you can like live safely, because they can infiltrate the media to just like put your face everywhere. They control the whole legal system and will prosecute you for nothing. They want you scared and intimidated for being conservative, because we are the barrier to their world order. Think about why they wanted to stop Trump so much with the piss dossier. Think about why they wanted to do that, and think about why they continue to cover up that. Think about it. Donald Trump, the American First agenda, holds a threat to their world order that they are wanting to institute. They are wanting to bring evil in the name of equality and shit like that to infringe on our lives. And these neocons are continuing to talk about socialism and free speech, free market capitalism.
Let's say, hypothetically, that companies that are holding too much power over our speech are censoring people, specifically for being conservative. They're private companies, they're allowed to do this, and they're trying to institute a world order, which helps me because I'm not America first, and I want to beat Israel. I prefer Israel over America. My name is Ben Shapiro.
That's what neocons are saying. I'm tired of it. We can't allow it anymore. I'm sick of it. I'm done. People from other tyrannical countries are looking upon us and warning us. We are not aware of what is coming because our lives are too comfortable. We need to energize a movement. We need to bring back social conservatism and begin to call the mainstream people of our movement that continue to sell us out, which the FBI allows to be mainstream because it makes it appear to people that we are actually allowed to exist in society. And these people are continuing to sell us out. Social media, FBI, DOJ, they're allowing only conservatives that they approve of, which are those that will refuse to do anything against them because they're total pussified neocons that continue to sell us out to lobbyists. And it's evil. We need to let them know to join or die. As in, join or lose their seat, join and lose their power, and then as a result of losing their power and their seat, they'll lose their home, because what they did was refuse to support the American people when it came to totalitarian governments and big corporations trying to silence us. They'll continue to defend these private corporations in the pursuit of free speech, free market capitalism. The founders created free speech so that information would be out there and distribution wouldn't be controlled by the state and kept from the American people. The founders did not create free speech so that treason would be brought in the form of corporations that are given legal privileges to censor us and are worked with people in the government to censor us and keep correct information and conservative views of information away from the average person. What is happening is a redistribution from corporations and from the state, and that is not free market. That's not free market capitalism, I guess. It isn't. And that is not free speech. People in the swamp allow these neocons to exist because they know that having these neocons exist allows the reality of what is happening to be hidden from the noses of their corporate selves. They'll continue to sell it to lobbyists that don't have the interests of the American people first, especially those that seem to have the interests of Israel first. And I'm not anti-Jew when it comes to like Israel versus Palestine. I much prefer Israel and something like that. However, we shouldn't be intervening with those foreign affairs, and we should also not be trying to move our businesses there. We should also not be giving tax subsidies to them, arming them. We should isolate ourselves from them and treat the American people first. And that is something that our neocons are so discontent with, because all of their funding and lobbying comes from these globalists, and we need to inform them highly. Start mass messaging them on the phone calls and leaving a message. If you see them in public, don't harass them, of course. I'm not Maxine Waters. I'd never advocate for something like that. But let them know that what they're doing is submitting to an evil narrative. When we have the power to infiltrate laws, we refuse to do laws against child castration, pornography, censorship of conservatives, the forever wars, the illegal spying of people, the corrupt media that tries to create chaos and violence, the slander and libel, the slander going on over the internet, the frankly evil things that they're teaching our kids, the fact that children are being adopted to gay parents which then abuse them, and especially the idea that it is still legal to murder children. Let me remind you that it is still legal in this country to murder a child as long as they are in the geographic location of being inside the womb. And many liberals would even like to bring upon the idea of abortion outside the womb, because what they want is the mother to be stripped from her femininity, because when society is stripped from the roles of masculinity and femininity, they can take over the world. That's what they can do. That's why they've been pushing this gender bullshit. They know it's not true. That's why they've been pushing this transgender bullshit. They know it's not true. That's why they've been pushing for pedophilia. They know it's not right. When you look at Simone de Beauvoir, which is responsible for a lot of this mainstream gender theory, what she did was, in France, she signed a petition to lower the French age of consent, which was 14. What they're doing is bringing upon the idea of sexual liberalization. They're stripping people from their manliness and from femininity, and they're stripping society from the idea of consent and from the idea of children being incapable to make sexual decisions. Because if you can castrate your kids based off of their choice, make a permanent sexual decision, what's the difference between that and allowing them to decide whether they want to have sex or not? What's the difference? Both are assuming that children can consent to decisions based off of their sexuality. So why if we have one, should we not have the other? And people like Simone de Beauvoir understood this, because they wanted to strip children, and they wanted to from their childhood, and they wanted to fuck up the future generations, and they wanted sinister results because they were evil people. They wanted to kill off the future generations of society, as can be seen by John Money, which did evil things to those kids, which led to them both killing themselves, one by suicide and one by overdose, due to the depression caused from that study. So in essence, both of them were suicide. This whole movement is to kill our future generations. This is not a disagreement on tax policy, which is like what the Republican Party seems to be obsessed with. This is an idea of wanting to kill your kids, wanting to prosecute us illegally, spy on us, wanting to defeat us from society so they can institute their world order, and wanting to kill off the population through things like abortion, suicide, mass shootings, violent crimes, creating rioting, unrest, and then prosecuting us and eventually probably giving us the death penalty eventually. And what they're doing is trying to institute a world order. It's evilness. It's evilness. And all these neocons seem to be obsessed with tax policy and something socialism. It's kind of mind-boggling about the fact that we haven't stepped up to the fact that these neocons are doing this yet, that we haven't erased these issues to them yet, and we haven't voiced our concern with the fact that they have been leading our party into a place of pacifism where we never defeat any threats to our country's moral values and framework, which inherently is a threat to the country itself. There is this meme that has the Republican elephant and the Democrat donkey, and they're both fighting, and the one labeled Democrat says, "I'm going to castrate your children and raise your taxes." And the Republican elephant says, "No, I will not let you raise my taxes." And that's what's happening, is that these neocons, these corporate GOP people, are selling out the interests of our country into things that will inevitably lead to people becoming so insecure that they know that they can't compete in a competitive market of ideas and the a market of capitalism that they know that their only way of survival is through submitting to the government. So what happens is conservatives sell out on the ideas that are creating insecurities and degeneracy that will inevitably lead to socialism, and you're only focusing on the socialism part and ignoring the places that will actually lead to these things with socialism. And it's awful, and we need to bring it up because if we continue down this path and don't voice our concerns, it's going to be GG's. We're going to be fucked. And what was last podcast episode, which was me advocating for bearing arms, as in literally like open carrying arms. I didn't mean like shooting up people. I meant literally like bearing arms in the sense of open carry protests, which we need to be more of. Because we can't be passive on this. Our role is to conserve the nation. That's our role, and that's what our ancestors are looking upon us to do. That's what people in Hong Kong are looking upon us to do. People from all other countries are looking upon us to do, and they're seeing us be lazy and complacent in a system that breeds insecurity so they can eventually bring their world order because people will sell themselves out to it. And let me remind you that we had Reagan as a president twice. We had Bush Sr. Then we had Bill Clinton, which was actually a fairly conservative candidate. And then we had Bush. And what turned out being was that none of them, even Reagan, had moral conservatism. None of them did. They were all neocons. This Bush conservative movement of being like passive when it comes to moral conservatism, but being totalitarian when it comes to our liberties, and using the FBI to create domestic and foreign affairs that they can then save us from and put us in forever wars and lie to the people and to get support for their agenda, as seen by how Bush got 95% approval rating after 9/11. And we had these Republican presidents, excluding Bill Clinton, which was a fairly Republican president. In fact, the most morally conservative president out of Bush Sr., Reagan, and Clinton on immigration was Bill Clinton, because we were too worried about looking racist or xenophobic to actually do anything, and then we saw our country's values collapse as a result. And we cannot vote Republican unless they adopt social conservatism. And what we're seeing now is that they're trying to push social conservatism, but as like a disguised idea. Like they're trying to disguise people like Bruce Jenner as a social conservative, and they're like anti-transgender on like things like sports, and they're just like, oh, they're conservative. No, they're not. That's their word that they have to say to try and get you to surrender to what they're going to do, which is normalize transgenderism, what is also known as sexual degeneracy, to America and destroy the whole Western's values of what it means to be a man and woman. And what these neocons are doing is just allowing that, because they are going along with the Democrats on trying to bring the world order and destroy America. And what they're trying to do is make this person appear to be morally conservative so they can then get some of us to be like, I'll vote for him over Gavin Newsom or whoever. If we allow a sexual degenerate person to become a governor under the Republican Party, we will normalize and submit to the destruction of the country and destruction of its moral system and the nuclear family, and we'll inevitably lose our country from that. And it's a big deal. It's not something we should be taking lightly. We should be calling these people urgently. We should be contacting them. This is a big deal. We need to be telling them about immigration, legalizing pornography, all these issues with like campaign funding and lobbying, the issues of stealing elections, and things that they could get passed right now is things like anti-castration bills. To at least like maybe to like a certain age, they could probably get some bipartisanship on that. And things like ending social media banning. We never know if these policies are going to be passed or not, unless we